Hello! Let me introduce the second time about the mix of men and women during the hot spring tour in Japan. The history of the Daisuguchi Onshing, located in Kanazawa, has been around for 1,400 years. In 1836, found the springs to business. This came up to the Ryokan Ryusen Kaku. Handan, the pride of this ryokan, is a reproduction of the landscape of the vast fields at the time. In the mixed bath, you can enjoy various types of hot spring baths, including standing and lying down baths. Since the fields were made from images, rice is planted in all parts of the hot springs. Women should wear towels that will never go down, and men should wear their own pants. Also, there is always an officer at the entrance to men's and women, so nothing unusual happens. It's a big, open-air mess, so it's a great mix for family trips, especially with children. The bath inside is available for men and women. This is the second introduction of the hot spring tour in Japan, mixed men's and women's. Osaka Ryokan, where Shinchun is located, men and women are confused even in the West Sea 1,300 years ago. It is the oldest mixed water spa resort in Japan, which is recorded as the Holy Land of Chaos. Hot spring baths have a great effect on beauty and health, with the copy lighting that makes them look like skin. The popular ryokan representing Damotsukurian stream is Shankun, boasting a huge Japanese garden and Japan's largest outdoor bath. Women wear a dedicated towel in the women's locker room, which allows them to move into a hot spring bath and into a mixed zone. There's no fear that men will catch the moment you enter the spa. The outdoor bath is very large, and the bath is quite deep, so once you go into it, you won't be able to see it. Of course, men also wear their own towels. The old traditional spa ryokan, the oldest in the Newtown stream, is the Tsuruno Onsen, a hot spring town that has remained the same ever. The old-fashioned hot spring ryokan, like a time slip in Idore, is a new world that Japanese people are amazed at. Not only the ryokan, but also the location of the hot springs is the best, so you can go to the hot springs in the fresh green of summer, winter with the snow, with a completely different look. It's a super popular ryokan that can't be used without a few months prior reservation. The outdoor bath is a white spa with a mysterious atmosphere. As it is against the manners of the hot springs, you cannot put a towel around the old traditional hot springs here. However, because the hot spring water is white, you can't see your body very well when you go into the body. Women who are uncomfortable with the confusion have wide open air baths dedicated to women. Ryokan is located in the hot spring village of Kyushu, Kurokawa, which became famous for Korean tourists. Compared to other regions, Ryoka and spa have many ryokans with a mixed bath system, especially Ryokan Okunoyu, which has a wide range of spa facilities that can only be visited in the ryokan. There are 3 outdoor baths, to chartered outdoor baths, women's outdoor bath, gents inner baths, to women's baths, and to men's baths. You can also enjoy free hot spring baths or paid rock baths. Okunoyu's outdoor bath is praised for its best scenery, among many outdoor baths in Kurokawa hot springs. Mixed baths are easy to get into, but hot springs are transparent, and women need a little courage because they are banned from using towels in hot springs. Even when you're moving between 3 different places, you'd better wear a towel. Especially, the bath on the river's side is popular, and mixed baths can be used exclusively for women over time. Admiral Perry, who came to untangle Japan's secession at the end of the Edo dynasty, doubted his eyes. Are women walking around without covering their chests? We saw naked men and women in public baths, unruly revealing important parts and bathing in one place. The old custom in Japan, the mix of men's and women, is also called the marital bath, and the story goes back to the Edo period. Fire and fighting are the flowers of Edo. There's a saying. In Edo, where the population was so large and the wooden houses were so dense, fires were frequent. So, it was a long way from ordinary people to build and bathe in the bathroom. But Issei Yoichi opened the era of public bathhouses in Japan for the first time. Since then, the bathhouse has enjoyed its heyday in Edo. Ever since the first bathhouse was opened, it's been a mixed bath for men's and women's baths. The reason is simple. Because people at that time didn't think it was obscene for men and women to take a bath together. Another major background of the bathhouse was the bathroom owner's calculation. He insisted on insults because he had to spend more money to make a separate bath for men and women. At that time, the bathroom was small in the entrance and dark with no windows. Sometimes there were cases of gunji, but most working-class people did not think that greed was hurting their morals. But one person didn't like the humiliation. Edomabu Matsudaira Sananobu, the eighth shaman, believed that greed had hurt the taste of the wind, and in 1791, the marriage ban was imposed. And of course, it was the bathhouse owner. From this point on, the push and pull between the authorities and the employer is developed. The owner, who refused to make extra coffee, shaved his head and came up with a plan called part-time operation. From a few hours to a few hours of the day, it's for men to use and it's for women to use. There is still a part-time like this in Hot Spring. Later, however, the last couple banned such a part-time system. Then the owner made a man's day and a woman's day. It allowed women to bathe only on days 1 and 6. It would be fine to do half of the women's and men's days, but we can see that the idea of male and female slaves was also evident in Japan at that time. Due to the low number of days, the bathhouse was jam-packed every day for Women's Day. The women's complaints hit the sky. It exploded. On a Malayanly day, women who couldn't control their desire to bathe were caught off guard by surprise. When things reached this point, the last minute's desire to stop mixing weakened and naturally acquiesced. That doesn't stop the ordeal. The aforementioned Admiral Perry, when he sees the scene of chaos, is smug. Her daughter-in-law openly criticized her, and in 1858, the marriage ban was issued. Restrictions were tightened in the city, but the ban on sexual harassment did little to help back then. Later, the ban on bathing was often imposed, but it continued to be considered as a matter of course in various places, including local hot springs. As the city's tourists, who were far from being in a state of high growth, flocked to the provinces, the local mixed hospital inn and hotels, which were judged to be less profitable due to the cultural shock, began to build additions and renovations to make men and women's baths separately. From this point on, the number of baths decreases sharply. But in places where we consider confusion an old custom, we are still waiting for our guests. Recently, it is said that Japanese local governments are trying to attract tourists, even by changing their rules because of the popularity of sexual desire among young women. The Tsurumoyam Spa has 4 baths, each with different ingredients and different baths, so you can enter it as you like. Suribikton is called the beauty's bath and warms the body to treat coldness. Kuroi Blackton is effective in treating infertility. Nakanoru is a mixed-sex outdoor bath for men and women, and it is a hot spring water with the color of milk. Takinobu Waterfall is a waterfall that drops hot spring water in high places. There are no separate changing rooms or locker rooms because the facilities of the outdoor bath are not good. You can put your clothes in a basket and use a bath. There is no room for washing, so you can take a hot spring, rinse with water, and come out after wearing clothes. It's a little uncomfortable, and I have to use only the soup. I'm sorry that I can't do this kind of hair makeup. First of all, there are a lot of people, and it's a bath, so of course you have to face some shame. I was a little, if not a lot of embarrassment to the men's arrogance. Older people, of course, used to be covered with a small towel, but young men go to old noodles. There are many Western couples, but I enjoy mixed feelings more than Koreans. The color of the water is milky, so you can't see it dipped into the water, but most Japanese women cover themselves with a big towel and often walk with a duck's paw. The hot spring water was very slippery, and when I came out, my skin was soft. It's a shy and fun experience, but it's not easy to do, so I think it's a good experience only in Japan to visit the Tsuruno hot spring. If Korean people travel to Japan, is there really a mixed hot spring in Japan? I'm sure many people are curious about the chaotic hot springs. Is there really a mixed hot spring in Japan? If so, should I take off all my clothes? What about the age group that goes into a mixed hot spring? Then, do you have any domestic hot spring show? When I go to Japan, one of the places that Koreans are really strange to me is mixed sugar. As the word samjinguk says, when you go to Japan, there is actually a mix of men's and women. But most of Japan's hot springs are divided into mixed hours and non-dusting hours. Skynshin is a 300-year-old historical hot spring in Japan. It is a large spa that can accommodate 1,000 Japanese people. It is also a hot spring that Japanese people want to visit. However, there are cases where the hot spring between men and women is closed due to the fact that the hot spring is closed due to the complaints of the general public and people with voyeurism who like to steal. So if you go to the hot spring when you go to the hot spring, I hope you will preserve the Korean bathing culture. Thank you. Have a good trip. Press OK and unsubscribe if you've been helpful.